The continued assault on gas appliances by national, state, and local governments continues rather unabated. This week, the U.S. Department of Energy issued a proposed regulation that would ultimately accelerate deployment of electric heat pump water heaters in the name of, you got it, efficiency standards. Mike, according to the Energy Information Administration, the market for water heaters is fairly evenly divided between gas and electric water heaters. Now, the proposed standards announced by Secretary of Energy Jennifer Granholm is scheduled to take effect in 2029 if it's finalized. And it's expected to save, government figures again, $200 billion and reduce more than 500 million metric tons of carbon dioxide emissions over the years. Of course, it didn't discuss the cost of the new water heaters. But this proposed the water heater industry, the gas water heater industry, opposes proposed regulation because the cost to incorporate condensing technology required by the regulation will price gas water heaters out of the marketplace. Given that the technology that is being advocated by the Biden administration already exists, why not just let the market decide?
Well, I think that's a way to approach it. I think the challenge, and it's interesting that we're having this conversation during the hottest month in the history of the world, of the planet. I think I saw something yesterday that said it's the hottest.
Come on, Mike, it's July for
120,000 years.
It's supposed to be hot in July.
It's supposed to be hot in July, but it's not supposed to be 102 degrees in the water off Key Largo.
Yeah. Okay.
So, I mean,
it's a different conversation.
So we continue to try to find the ways that are going to address how we're going to get climate change under control, how we're going to reduce carbon emissions and be able to move forward. Are those ways going to be easy? They are not. I mean, I think there's going to be a lot of pain. And unfortunately, if we're going to try to get there, we're going to have to set some criteria and some standards, and the market by itself, I don't think is going to be sufficient to make that happen because people don't want to change. I don't want to change. And yet we're witnessing what happens if we don't right now across the entire country.
You know why we don't want to change, Mike? Because that doesn't work.
Well, I don't know. I don't necessarily believe that. I don't think
work.
We don't want to change because it's different from what we had.
High efficiency appliances don't work. That's why people don't want to change.
I'm not sure people are giving that much thought to it. I think people don't want to change because they don't want to change. We are very static animals. We like things the way it is, and if we don't have to change it, that's a good thing, even though things require that we should.
Well, I think we're making a mistake of framing this as a binary choice between sort of supporting, thinking climate change needs to be addressed and addressing these particular policies. One of the paradoxes of this particular mandate is that the 2029 mandate moving to electric away from gas will come at a time when a substantial proportion of our electricity will still be generated by coal. So you have what should be a very disturbing prospect if you're a climate, if you're concerned about the climate, of transitioning from of generating water from natural gas, which is more efficient, but using coal instead. This is, I think, an example where we're not stepping back and looking at the policy choices. We're just treating it as a binary choice between, do you think that climate change is a problem or not? And that's not the issue at this point.
No, I agree with you, Mark. I think that's an interesting challenge. I was listening to a presentation yesterday, the day before, where the mandates for Great Britain, the United Kingdom, be able moving to all electric vehicles, and that they need to do 10 times as many charging stations in the next 9 years as they've done in the last 10 years. And, there's a reality of we have to establish some policies, we have to be moving in a direction, and then there's the reality of how do you get there from here. And so I agree with you. All of these pieces are confluences, and you've got to take them into context. I think you need to set markers and benchmarks, and you also need to live in the real world and figure out what's working, what's not working, and how do we make these transitions in a way that they're effective.
Well, I think that's a great point, Mike, because Washington Post columnist Henry Olson alleges there's a growing backlash to some of the climate policies and points out that Germany has backtracked on its proposal to ban fossil fuels home heating until after the election because the proposal is so unpopular.
Well, I was going to observe, I mean, Germany is really an example of kind of head scratching policies in this area. They've made the transition because they had generated a substantial proportion of their electric power from nuclear, and they're now trying. They keep delaying the date, but they want to transition away from that. That is the sort of the cleanest fuel that's available. And it's not a question of building new plants, which is another conversation. They already have them, but they want to, frankly, they want to get rid of them.
So, Mike, how do we achieve that balance that you and both Mark were talking about between reality and what we would like to see as future policy?
I think that's always the crux of policymaking. I mean, we've got to be in a situation where you have to achieve, you have to set goals, you have to be working towards something. And so I think, one, you have to acknowledge that there are challenges that we're trying to address. Second, that in order to get there, we have to make change and we have to be moving in a direction and things are going to be different. Third, I think we also need to take into account, as we're making that change, some things are going to work better than we anticipated. Some things are going to work less well than we anticipated. And so how do you then accommodate that as you're learning that along the way, and recognize that making those changes, you haven't given up on the initial policy objective, you're reacting to reality. And we do that very, very poorly, unfortunately, in a policy making perspective.
Well, I think we underestimate the American people and their willingness to make change. I believe, we have seen a 14% drop in CO2 emissions from the United States in the last 5 years. And it's not just government mandates that have done that. The American people are very willing, if they're given proper guidance and leadership on these issues, to make changes. I don't think we need government regulations to enforce all of the changes that are necessary to save, to address climate change, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Well, I like that, but I don't think we'd have seen the reductions that we've even seen, which probably are still far less than what they need to be. But I don't think we would have seen that unless we had started having that conversation and putting criteria out there for people to be shooting for. People aren't just one day going to say, it's really hot, I'll bet I should change how I'm purchasing my vehicle or what I'm getting for my gas range.
Well, I think government should be leading and not mandating. We have to go on to our next topic.